Inside my top box, there is a first aid kit. That is an important protection part that most riders, at least in Japan that I know, do not have. I have used that first aid kit twice to save 2 people's lives. Really just an amazing thing that everyone overlooks. The next thing is, this is for my airbag vest, a very important safety feature. I've got it tied to the frame in there, and here's a video about it, so watch that. The next thing is to protect the bike a bit. Here's the Acerbis frame protectors for the Transalp. I got these before I picked up the bike because of the shipping time. I didn't want to like start wearing out the paint at all. I wanted the protection from day one. I didn't realize the bike comes with plastic guards. This is bigger and this has some grip, so when you're standing off road, that's supposed to help. I've got both sides, and when I got those, I got a coupon because it was my first time buying from that company. The coupon was the exact price of the Axle guards. I see mixed reviews, but I could get them for free, so why not? And so I did, and I didn't have to pay import or shipping on them. It was genuinely a free bonus in the box. If you see here, this black tape, I'll show you pictures. This black tape is in several spots. It's even back here on this box. It is very reflective at night. So the biggest safety feature you can have is something that just prevents the crash altogether. The next protective feature, that's another quick one, is I got the wind deflectors. This one is not from Honda. This one is, I got a deal and I got them to install it. So there it is. And then these ones I got off Amazon for 1/4 the price. The real reason I got them, yes, I like to save money, but also these are clear, these are tinted. Honda only has tinted. I didn't want a clear windscreen with a tint just shooting up the sides. Here's a video of a guy that tests doing them one by one, and he claims it's good, so why not? I got this Radiator Gaurd. I put it on this morning. It's not the one I originally picked. The one I originally picked never showed up, and this one was 1-day shipping for the same price. It was less than $30 US. It's better than nothing. I think it's good enough with the low fender, with everything else. I think it's not going to be that big a deal, and there is the plastic guard behind for anything that does sneak through those big gaps in the letters and the logos. I want to talk about the hand guards. I went with Barkbuster styled hand guards, where it's the full metal braces going the whole way around. These are not Barkbusters. These are from Zeta. Zeta is a Japanese maker, so I got a really good deal and everything was very cheap. These are the lower ones. The reason I got them is because on forum lore, if you believe it, some people can get their hand stuck in here in a crash and break their wrist. This is another exit point that's a little bit safer. These plastic sliders come with it. And then with Zeta, they have a lot of plastic handguards that can bolt on universally. I got these because they've got enough holes that it's somewhat breathable for the unforgiving Japanese summers. And for very little money, I can get full coverage ones that are reversible for when the winter comes. Now, the bolt that goes through here is not the one that came with it. I had to get a 60mm long M6 to put through to fit to Honda. And this is a 30cm 8 1.25. It would have fit with a 2cm, but I drilled new holes because this didn't fit quite right, but this fits great. And if you can see right here, it's not actually touching the brake reservoir. If you can't see, take my word for it. And on this side, it's not damaging anything. It's the exact same thing. Now for the part that's going to be controversial, the crash bars. Why did I not get upper crash bars? Definitively, there are 2 truths that you can say are always true about upper crash bars. One, they do protect more of the bike. There's more of them, they protect more. The other thing you can say is it adds more weight up high for more money. With the crash bars and with these hand guards, even in full lock, without the hand guards, I may actually end up hitting the tank in a crash because of the angle. I will scratch on plastics. With the hand guards, it does protect, and on both sides at every angle of the handlebar. This will probably still get scratched. If you see down there the crash bars and here the radiator, the bars do stick out past the radiator. Even when you take the plastic off and see the whole radiator, it does stick out past. So the parts that will ruin your life, those are protected. The plastics, I haven't decided if I care or not about them. Yeah, it's nice and new, but it's only new for so long. I'm hoping this is my 10-year plus bike. A crash protector I wish existed. Look at Camel ADV's Tenere fairings that are made of polyethylene. Those are amazing because they're just nearly indestructible. The only thing your crash bars are protecting is the literal plastic that I don't know I care about. Camel ADV, if you watch this video, if you hear about this, I can 100% guarantee you I will import one to Japan. I will pre-order it, even if it's a year in advance. If you make it, I will buy it. It is exactly what this bike is missing, and then it's pretty well perfect for me. That's why I went with lower crash bars. One thing to note is the types of welds. So if you see down here underneath my reflective tape, they cut the shape of the bar. They don't pinch. Pinches and flat welds, that saves money, that saves time, that's easier, much more fragile, much less protection. I didn't want that. As far as protection, and we'll save skid plate for later, but as far as protection, there are a few things to note. First, I also added these plastic. These are Amazon special. The plastic does absorb a little better impact to not send it through the frame or anything, and they help slow it down in a road slide. As far as I know, I'm not an off-road expert yet, but as far as I know, the little plastic sliders do almost nothing in the dirt, but they don't hurt. So there are 4 interiors you can look at. You can look at plastic in terms of case covers, like Acerbis. You can then look at aluminum, like Cross Pro. Then you can look at stainless as a couple, and you can look at mild steel. I don't have any sources in the description. I won't give you any sources because I believe you shouldn't trust a YouTuber and you should do your own research. YouTubers get it wrong. Even big channels that are highly respected and have research are wrong. They come to the wrong conclusions. So based on my experience and my research, here we go. Now, the first thing that you have to say in the advantage is weight. But when you say weight, you have to be power to weight. Assuming it's high quality material from a good maker, by power, getting the same protection strength, milled steel is the heaviest. Stainless steel is a bit lighter. Aluminum is lighter again for the same amount of protection. Plastic and composites are then even more light. The next thing to consider would be, for me, rust. I hate rust. I hate rust so much it's unreasonable how much I hate rust. But plastic doesn't rust, composites don't rust because it's not metal. Aluminum oxidizes. It doesn't rust, but it oxidizes on the surface, which can cause rigidity issues. Stainless just generally doesn't rust. Steel rusts. And titanium is for dentists who own GSs and no one else. When it comes to rust, part of the reason I hate rust is not just a fashion sense. Rust causes it to become brittle. So it's not dramatic. Surface rust is not ruining your product, but the more it rusts, once rust is in, rust is in. You don't just paint over it. When rust is in, you have to sand it out. And for those who do sand or grind the rust out and say problem solved, you have just worn down your crash protector. You keep wearing down your crash protector, and the thing is you don't want to lose any strength at all. So the non-rustable ones are the ones I would go for. I understand why some people don't, but we'll get to that. The next thing is malleability. So in a crash, you don't want something too rigid. If it's too rigid, it puts all the effort back into the frame. So you can say, if nothing else, this straight piece will flex, this straight piece will flex, so it's not too rigid. And when people say steel is the most flexible, that's barely true. It is true, but it's barely true. So if you're to assume that the manufacturer you've purchased from, they're all skilled. As far as the malleability, plastic is going to have some give and flex and bounce more than composites. Composites have very little. Carbon fiber tends to shatter in a crash depending how it's made, but with case covers they are right on the engine, so it's still putting all the effort into the engine no matter how it's made. Eventually that'll be a concern, but it's better than nothing. Aluminum will bend. It will kind of flex and flex back. It will bend eventually, but it's not actually that far off steel. Stainless is more rigid than steel, but not as much as people think. Stainless can flex. If you go to the hardware store and get a piece of aluminum 1mm, steel 1mm, and stainless 1mm sheet metal, you can bend them. If you get a long enough bolt made of the 3, you can bend them. It's not like this is gonna snap and explode. Now, where the real issues come in with all these materials is manufacturing. So composites and plastics will always be the best manufactured from new, because it is just, you set the mold correct or you didn't get what you want. When it comes to the 3 metals we're talking about, forgetting titanium, steel took me about 40 minutes to learn how to weld. And we are only talking about strength, we're not talking about beauty. This is not beauty. This is a strong weld, not a beautiful weld. You can get companies like Alt-Rider where you get strength and beauty, but milled steel, I could weld it for strength before the first lesson was done, and there wasn't really a second lesson. Stainless, it's not as difficult as people think compared to steel, but it is more difficult, and if you do it too hot or not hot enough, it's a brittle weld and it can snap. Engine vibration can snap it. I have seen a few SRC owners having that issue. SRC fixed it under warranty and added a dampener, but it was only on single cylinder bikes they had that issue, so I'm not worried. Stainless though, if it's done wrong, you have an issue. Aluminum, I don't even pretend to know that I can do that. I understand conceptually because I've seen it done so much when I was at Cherry's company, and the guys explained to me how they did aluminum. Let's just see the other side of the bike for fun. But they explained to me how they do it and how to learn it, and it just seems like such a challenge. So I say Cross Pro, I've never worked with them, but I know people that have used them. Cross Pro is very good with their aluminum welding, from what I can tell, but aluminum welded poorly is trash. It could even be more harm than good. Like they say, anything's better than nothing. That's not always true. You need to go with a maker you can trust, or you need to go with milled steel. You're a weekend hobbyist, you're a racer, I don't see why you wouldn't consider aluminum. You are traveling the world where you cracked or bent a bar and you gotta fix it. Finding someone in hillbilly nowhere that can weld aluminum is really, really rare. And just because they can doesn't mean they can do it well. Milled steel, Harbor Freight $30 welder, it can get you on the road and get you where you're going. A low quality weld to just get you to a place where you can get a better weld, stainless should be fine. The aluminum I've seen is also much cheaper at that point. That, just throw it away. Plastic as well, you can fix it, you can fix carbon, but it's very hard to fix carbon. And plastic, it's very toxic to melt and fix plastic. It's very toxic to make the plastic. Check anyone's bloodstream. We got plastic in our blood forever. Plastic has some serious health implications to work with, and the more you melt and reseal, plastic is very limited in its recyclability. If you're someone who goes green and recycle, don't look into it because you'll just be so depressed. As far as repair, which you should also consider is, if you've done my experiment, you got a piece of metal, just keep bending it in your hands back and forth. It'll get easier and easier and easier, and it'll snap. Part of that's the heat from bending it over and over, but you can bend it once a day. Eventually it's going to snap, and it'll still be cool. So the more you bend your bars, the more you should be thinking about throwing them away. Cracks could be repaired, but it's a disposable thing. Think of this like your motorcycle's helmet. Based on all of that, I find stainless is better than aluminum because it does hold up a bit better. It's more fixable, it's easier to work with. It's less likely that a bad welder will ruin your bike. You really can't overstate how much rust can ruin it. Once it's in, and you have to wear down your product to fix it, if you even can. That was an issue I had with my Yama rust on my MT. I didn't have rust on my Tracer, but my MT was just, I don't want to know what it looks like under the paint of the swing arm. Now, why I picked SRC, A, stainless, B, lower bars only, C, Alt-Rider told me they're making crash bars, but it's a few months out. I don't need crash bars in a few months, I need crash bars now. But when these wear out, we'll see what Alt-Rider does. The other thing is, if you look at how the skid plate mounts, the Tenere and the V-Strom have frame rails that go here. They're not frame rails, they're not structurally part of the bike's frame. They're literally places to mount skid plates. This bike saves weight by not having those, but it adds weight by having this. Just as a fun fact, this weighs more than the weight difference between this bike and the Tenere. Tenere doesn't come with a top rack or handles for the pillion. Take those off. This actually does weigh less than a Tenere, but that's not the point. Going with these, it has the mounts, it screws straight in, no rubber mounts or anything. Now skid plates, I think plastics are better than composites because they flex and flex back, and you can gouge them and they're fine. When you break a cord of carbon fiber or fiberglass, that is broken. Once it does, there's a very quick breaking point. Plastic, it'll flex, it'll give, it'll pull, but it'll maintain reasonable strength. When this wears out, I may make my own out of hemp. You can see this video, I've made stuff out of hemp before. I've done some testing on strength. It seems to be a brilliant thing to work with, so I will give it a try maybe. You don't want plastics just hanging. You want them to be against a frame rail, which this doesn't have. That's why I didn't get the Acerbis skid plate for this. I wasn't sure if it was just mounted in the two spots or if it actually had rails with it. This comes free with these lower crash bars. I'm happy with free. Steel and stainless, there's almost no difference besides rust and a little bit of weight saving on the stainless. So if you have the choice, stainless is better, because if you never go off-road, right? You're just a street rider. Eventually you're gonna flick a rock into it from the street, you're gonna scratch it and it's gonna rust, or it's gonna be made of stainless or aluminum. Most make them out of aluminum. On the Yahoo page that I bought this from, it says it's a stainless steel skid plate. The American website talks about an aluminum skid plate, and it suggests it's a stainless steel skid plate. So I don't know. If I have a preference, I go with stainless steel, because aluminum will bend and maintain that bend, and aluminum being softer, aluminum can gouge, and that can be something that gets caught up on things. Steel can bend, but it typically doesn't gouge, so it still slides over things. Stainless will hold a more flat setup, and as you know with the Transalp, if you could see in here, if you haven't already seen before, look at that oil pan. Look at that exhaust. If you have something that's flexing, that's what it's flexing into. That's a concern. I'm hoping this is stainless. If you also see down there, we've got holes in the bottom. I guess breathability or something. I'm not sure why you want holes on the bottom. I would think that's the worst place for holes, but I'm just gonna blindly trust it, because everyone I know who has SRC stuff, they're very satisfied. I've seen some people that are really trashing the hell out of it, and it's holding up fine. So skid plates, plastic slides, plastic's forgiving. I think plastic's better in every way, as long as it's not in your bloodstream. Next I would go with stainless, and then aluminum and steel. In pretty much every situation, I think steel is the worst. It's the easiest to work with, it's the easiest to repair, it's the heaviest, got the rust issues. Some people, like Outback, told me the reason they don't do stainless is just an expensive beauty mark, and that's just not true. It is expensive. Generally, it's just very good. If I remove the skid plate because I'm not going off-road, these would still be the crash bars for on-road, because it's very easy to destroy your engine on any bike, not just a Transalp. But this video has gone on long enough, perhaps too long, and remember, I will link below all the products I talked about. I bought everything with my own money, I made my own choices, and I just trashed a lot of manufacturers that might get mad at me. Don't trust me, do your own research, as always. I'm waiting for one part to come that I'll put on the handlebar, and then I will film the rest of my modifications. If you wanna know why I bought the bike, if you wanna see those, there's a playlist that this will all be in. Thank you for watching.